What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to the pod. Thanks for tuning in. For people who are doing Ramadan, it is officially the first day still. I guess it started last night when the sun went down, the end of February, and so I guess technically people could still eat, but the sun in my area, I think the sunrise was like 6:21 a.m. So I'm guessing that's about the time it would have started here, technically, as far as the fasting part. Fasting from 6:21 until I think 5:50 p.m. I don't like I was saying before, I'm not 5:50 p.m. in my area. I'm not 100% sure if it's if it's sundown, like the actual sundown time in your area, or what. And I'm not the authority on any of this. I'm learning about it. I'm an enthusiast about learning about different cultural things and trying to see what they do and practice some of it, but I don't intend to really become some religion or to promote becoming some religion or try to entice people toward it. It's just, I like practices for the sake of practices and traditions and things like that. But as far as belief systems, and faith and things like that, I will leave that up to people to determine for their own self. Like, I'm not really here to kind of really try to push anything or say that I think it's better to do it or not better to do it. I just like to try stuff and talk about my own experiences and learn around along the way. And so I like to talk about it. I'm gonna get my earbuds. I don't really like holding my phone when I'm talking. Now, I wanted to talk about my experience last year. I wanted to kind of recap on it because it was kind of interesting. And, oh, forgive me yawning, guys. I got up really early. It was early for me, but, um, I think I slept really good. This is probably the second night now that I've slept pretty decently. I guess the night before I took what was less melatonin, which was 15 milligrams, which was less than what I had taken quite a few nights before that. And then last night I only took like 5 milligrams, and I still slept just fine. So I may have woken up once, I don't really remember, but I think I slept through the night. So, and the only thing I've really changed was going to the gym so far. So, I've gone 2 days to the gym and had 2 nights of good sleep. So I'm guessing that my home workouts are not as intense as I thought they were. And I only spent like 40 minutes at the gym one day, about 43 minutes the next day. And with those minutes at the gym, 10 of those minutes were like stretching. So I wasn't really I was feeling what I was doing, but I mean, I'm not hopped up on pre-workouts, and I don't feel like my muscles are super strong. I'm definitely not able to do like as many reps and stuff, but I'm not like completely cold or completely out of shape because I have been getting exercise. Just, I guess, the amount that I thought I was getting was maybe I needed to step it up, or it just wasn't as good. But I will probably work out from home this morning. I don't know. My energy is not very high right now. But I wanted to talk about last year's Ramadan experience, because it was kind of the first time I had ever try anything with it, and it was interesting, and I talked about it before, but I'm like, I tried to find the episodes where I talked about it, and I was like, well, I ramble a lot, and I didn't really want to go back and listen to all of that, so I was like, let me just put it here. And so it's a recap of the major interesting part of 2024 when it was starting for me. Now my health was in a different place then. Um, so technically trying to do the fasting part was just not, it just wasn't a good idea. Like I tried kind of as I could try, and I remember going to the library at least once. But I tried a little bit, and it was good. Um, um, but yeah, I guess so. Let me not like take too long. So basically, the night before, it was, I don't remember what night it was, but I remember there was like a night before. I don't remember what day of Ramadan it would have been. It wasn't maybe I don't think it was the first day. Um, I think there was something I said I tried for one day, but it was the last day of Ramadan. So I don't know if that's when I started trying, if it was the last day that I tried this. But but I remember maybe the night before. I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing something the night before, and I was like, okay, I want to try fasting in the morning. And I remember I did use the microwave the night before. I don't recall at this moment like what I was actually cooking or preparing, but I did use the microwave, and I probably got something out of the fridge maybe the night before too. I remember specifically either having a snack or doing something using the microwave the night before. And then I woke up in the morning. I usually am the first one to get up. Woke up in the morning, and I was like, let me practice this fasting. And I got up. It was, I remember it being dark. I don't remember if it was technically still within the time frame of when you can eat, or if I had missed the time, but I was like, it's early still, so let me just try it early. I don't remember. I just remember the intention was to try it. And I think the first thing I noticed was the fridge. The fridge wasn't working, and the stove wasn't working, and the microwave wasn't working. And so I think I messaged my mom because I'm like, well, I don't want to like wake her. I don't remember what I did. I don't know if I ate something from home or if I went and got something out in the morning. I really don't remember. But I do remember the appliances not working, and I think my mom went and she went in the garage and did the circuit breaker. She kind of like flipped the circuit breaker, and I guess there was some kind of, you know, the circuit breaker kind of went off during the night, I guess. And it was only in the kitchen, and the stove was fine after that, after she flipped it, and the fridge was fine, but the microwave had shorted out, and so we had to get a new microwave. So the microwave we have now is basically from near Ramadan of 2024, and it's 2025 at the moment when I'm recording this. And so I just found it interesting because it's like it was something connected to food. I mean, anything in the house could have shorted out. You know, we had electricity everywhere else that I noticed. Like the Wi-Fi wasn't out that I remember. Like I don't remember not having like any electricity in any other areas of the house. There was nothing obvious like that. It was just specifically the kitchen. And I was like, you know, I'm not here to say, okay, this is a sign kind of thing. But I'm also kind of like, okay, the timing of that, is it not spooky? And yeah, people who there are people who are definitely interested in being like, oh, well, it's probably this or that or that or this. And it's like, yeah, I did use the microwave the night before. We can say that it could have been anything. But I did find it interesting that, it was the food related stuff. So it's not like it was something I could ignore. It was like first thing in the morning, I get up to try to cook during the time to try to, you know, experience something related to Ramadan, which is like I'm usually not up in the dark of the morning cooking. And I did I don't know if I did the prayers or tried to do them or listen to them, but during that time period, maybe before even trying any fasting, I want to say I tried the 5 time or 6 time a day prayers. I want to say I tried that. I don't know 100% because this is like, Ramadan last year I think was in April or so. This year it's earlier, um, and so because it's not always the same day, the same month period. It goes by like a cycle. So wherever it falls on the Gregorian type of calendar, it's on a different calendar. Like the Muslim holidays are on a different calendar than the Gregorian calendar, and so sometimes they'll probably fall on the same or on or near the same times, but sometimes it's completely a different time. So, um, but I just remember that time of year, what I had going on, and how that experience was. That was kind of the part that stuck out the most to me. Was the was that was the um, interesting interesting you know uh how do I say this? It was just interesting. Was it not interesting? I mean, that is that not interesting to you? That was interesting just because of what it was. It was like, well, nothing was really broken except for the microwave, and it's like, if the stove is working and the oven is working, you don't really need the microwave. And so I was kind of like, I was just a little surprised. I was a little shocked and surprised. It got my attention because it was something food related. And also, we don't commonly have circuit issues in our kitchen. That's not normal. We do have issues sometimes, like in some areas of the house. Like I know, well, my siblings aren't here, but if we were all home at the same time and we all had space heaters running at the same time, it would probably mess up the circuit. And so, and then somebody would have to go flip it. But I want to say that's on a different breaker. The breaker in the garage is where the kitchen one is. The one for inside our bedrooms or different other parts of the house, I think that one is outside, on our outside on our patio, like against the wall that's like on our patio. But I don't know. It's not. I don't know. It, it's just interesting. That's interesting, right? It's like to be able to have an experience like that the timing of it, I guess, is what was interesting because everything was working fine the night before. Whatever I had eaten or snacked on the night before, things were working fine the night before. And then I got up early and things were no longer working fine. And so to me, that was just very interesting. It kind of piqued my curiosity even more because I was like, oh, something happened that was like interesting. You know, usually nothing might happen, or like I wasn't expecting anything to happen, but because it was like related to like food, it's like all the things related to food, basically microwave, stove, and fridge. It's like, well, if those things were broken, it's like, well, I really will have problems with like eating, you know. But it was just something that was so like directly related to exactly what I was doing. And my mom sleeps way later than me, and I don't think she noticed the night before that there were any kind of issues. But again, it's like people aren't eating that late all the time. We don't like eat at like midnight and stuff. We're not really late night eaters, but I know sometimes she'll be snacking and it might be like 9 or 10 p.m. at night. And I think she would have noticed if something wasn't working because she'll be in the kitchen, and if the stove didn't have like the time on there, or if the fridge light, because I noticed because the fridge light was on, and usually it's on, so because there was no light when I opened the fridge, I was like, oh, like that's weird. And then the stove, like, yeah, the stove wasn't working, and the microwave wasn't working. But initially, I thought it was broken. I was like, why is this broken? And I don't remember what I ended up eating. But it was just interesting because I was like, the timing of it all, you know, because it had been working the night before, and then when I go in the morning to try to get food early, because I was like, let me try to do something related to how Ramadan would go. Like, I'm not doing this with other people. I'm not like going to any kind of like service. I'm not praying with anybody. I'm not really participating with any other person. I'm talking about it maybe a little bit on the internet, and other than that, I'm not doing anything else other than I think I was kind of listening to prayers and trying to practice some of them maybe, and the movements and things. And then I think I did purchase a Quran in 2024. I don't remember if I purchased it in April or May of 2024, but um, I didn't really use it hardly at all within the whole year. Um, but I have it, and we're almost full circle a year. We're like 11 months um, or so from that time. And so it is interesting to even just reflect like a year back and be like wow, like that was that was it didn't feel like it was 11 months ago. In the not too long ago, like me and my mom were talking about this microwave, and because we're like, I don't know where she got it, but she got it, I don't know, from, I don't know, she got it from somewhere. Um, but we were kind of talking about the microwave and how different it is from the other one, and how, there's a lot of moisture inside of it sometimes, and so I kind of leave the door open sometimes to like air it out, and then some other times it just kind of cooks things weird. Like the wattage isn't like super high, I don't think, but I mean it works fine, but it's like, say if you had like a frozen dinner and it says 7 minutes to cook it, it probably will take like 10 or 11 minutes to cook it in there. Like, you know, uh, to get hot water to boil, I usually put hot water in a cup, and then I put it for a minute and a half in the microwave if I'm brewing tea or something. And almost anything that I'm heating up out of the fridge that's not frozen, I usually put for like 3.5 minutes or so. And I remember the other microwave was like a minute and a half, and so like it is lower wattage, and it is a smaller microwave. And it kind of is weird with the moisture. And sometimes it's like there's like smoke in there because there's like moisture. because we're not like super careful with it. But we were talking about the microwave maybe like this past week or maybe the week before that, and I was kind of asking her, well, because I was in my head, I was like, it's not that old, is it? Like maybe you could return it. Like if it was Amazon, like maybe you could still return it and get your money back. But she was saying like it was a really long time ago, and then I was just remembering like yesterday or today. I was like, oh yeah, it was like 11 months ago. It must have been about 11 months ago because it went out during Ramadan, and I think we didn't have a microwave for a couple days while we waited, I think. But um yeah, like I mean, it was kind of weird. So that microwave is almost a year old, and we were just talking about it the other day too. And yeah, it's just kind of it's just interesting. All this stuff to me is kind of interesting. You can make up your own decision what you think. I know a lot of people would probably be like, "Oh, like that's just random. It's just a random case of something like that happening." I don't remember it ever happening before though. And like I said, I was using that other microwave the night before. Um, I think our other microwave was plugged into the same jack as our stove. I think it was plugged over on that side. I think I remember removing the stove's plug and trying to plug in the microwave to a different, unplug it, put it into another one, and it didn't work. Um, but yeah, I was the first one to discover it in the morning, and I think I was probably the last one to use any of anything in the kitchen, any appliances in the kitchen that night before. I think I don't really remember, but I mean, it's possible that my mom would have been in there later at night. And I really don't remember exactly what I was doing or for how many days I'd been thinking about it, but I was like aware at some point that it was Ramadan and Ramadan had still been going on, and I was like, I wanted to do something within the time period because I'd never done anything before. I was like, well, I want to do it during when Ramadan actually is going on. I want to actually do it during the time period. And so I went to do it, and that's pretty much how it started for me. That happened, um, and then I also remember like some of the experiences with trying to pray and stuff. Like in my head, I was like praying 5 times a day. I mean, even 3 times a day, like for people who might be like Christians and maybe they're doing it just with meals, with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or maybe they do like a morning devotion and an evening devotion or something like that. But that doesn't even feel like it's a lot. But for some reason with this other one, it felt like a lot. Like I was like, man, like just trying to keep track of what time of day. Because I remember there were a couple days where I was like, I think I had an app that had a timer on it. Like it wasn't beeping, or like maybe I had written down the times, or just kind of tried to remember the times. And I found myself really getting you know, getting like it was hard to keep up with the time. Like I found that really hard because I was like, okay, if I don't have it on an alarm, it's like I'm completely missing things. I'm completely forgetting. You'd think it's like something 5 times a day, and I don't know if it's 5 or 6 times a day. It seems I don't know. I'm gonna have to try to figure some of these details out. But I don't like to rush into learning a bunch of stuff. I like to take my time. So this kind of stuff takes me like years and years to learn. Just like when I was learning more about Judaism and learning about like learning to read Hebrew and write Hebrew and stuff like that, it was like it takes me a really long time, because I like to kind of absorb a lot of it and then kind of try some stuff and then see what I think and then, learn from like different sources. I'm not like I'm learning as an outsider. I'm not trying to learn to like be that religion. I'm trying to like learn like what it's like kind of to do some of the stuff action wise, but not necessarily learning trying to like become that religion. I just want the experience of some of it. I'll talk some more like about some other things. Like I kind of might want to try something more community based. I think there's something online that's like a live stream 9:30 a.m. today, so I might tune into that. And I thought I saw something next weekend in person. There's like some kind of potluck thing going on, so I might want to try and attend that. But I don't know where it is. Somewhere in LA, but I don't know where it is or if it costs money or if you like what. And I don't know if I really want to sit through a whole religious service, and I don't really know the rules to any of it, and I don't really know anybody there, and I don't want people trying to convert me, and I don't really want an obligation. So I may or may not go, but I'm looking into it to see if it's something that I might try, but it might be too soon. But I kind of want to do something. I just don't want it to be too much, you know. I don't think I want to spend more than 2 hours doing something with a bunch of people I don't know, and I don't think I want to do something where like I want to do a little bit of something as like a visitor maybe, but I don't really want to be like I don't want the pressure of religion. You know, I don't want any of that or the pressure of a religion that I really don't fully know. Like I know basic stuff, but I don't know enough to really even go in there and be like, you know, like, and I know how things are like separated with men and women and all this kind of stuff. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, you know, I feel like the way I would be interested is like as a cultural experience. I'm not interested as like someone who really wants to be a specific religion, but I respect it. But I don't, and I'm not trying to like criticize, you know, I'm not like I want to show up to try to like poke holes in theories and like argue and debate and criticize everything. Like that's not really what I want to do. I want to like experience it, but I don't want a lot of pressure. You know, I want to just be able to kind of pop in, pop out if I don't like it. I don't want to be like rude or like be in the middle of some service and like half falling asleep or something and like or be somewhere where it's like nothing's even in English and I don't know what's going on. And like I'm not gonna know what's going on anyways, but I want something casual where I can kind of learn and have like a vibe of it, but not really strict and not really stressful. I don't want to be stressed about it, but I want to try it. But I also don't know anyone who's doing anything where I know them and they're doing anything locally to where I could maybe request to join with their family or friends or anything. Like I don't really know anyone locally. The people I know, they're not close enough where I could like get to them or even like try to like where we don't really have that kind of relationship where I'd really want to try to like do stuff with their family or whatever. Like we, you know, I don't know. That wouldn't be maybe comfortable for any of us. And so I don't really want to like even try with the people I do know, but I don't know. I kind of have some interest in doing some things. I just don't know what that's going to look like quite yet. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much my story about it. I would say the first time I learned about Ramadan was because I had a Muslim friend in middle school, maybe middle school, high school. I don't remember if I was in like 8th grade or ninth grade or something around there when I met this person. I think I knew them from 8th grade, like from my 8th grade year, and they were the year younger. From my 8th grade year to from my 8th grade year to what year? from 8th grade to um, and we knew each other in college too, because I remember we were driving and we went to a concert of this band Outlandish. I don't know if they still make music, maybe they do, but this group, I think they're from Denmark. Their name is Outlandish, and I think it's like a Hindu guy, um, a Muslim guy, and a Catholic guy, or maybe two Muslim guys and one Catholic guy. I think there's like three or four of them, and there's like a singer or a rapper. Um, they kind of do like hip hop pop kind of music, and it's kind of got that. Some of it's got that Middle Eastern feel. Some of it's got like the guy who raps or sings in Spanish. The Catholic guy raps or sings in Spanish. A lot of his verses, and a lot of the music has like some religious themes to it. And there's a lot of but it's not, I mean, it's not like one religion because they're all different religions. But I remember going to that concert with him, and I remember they did like a prayer in the middle of the service because it was prayer time during the concert. Prayer time came up during the concert, and it was fun. I had a fun time going. It was hosted at some park type of amphitheater somewhere in Orange County, I think, because it wasn't close for either of us, but we got tickets and went. And then it was um uh yeah, we got tickets and went. So I know we were at least hanging out around then. And I feel like we went snowboarding maybe once, maybe twice, because he moved to like the IE. And so I don't know. I don't remember, but I want to say I knew him up until like my first or second year in college. But that was even long ago. Like, my second year of college, it was like 2004. So like this was so long ago, I don't even really remember. But he was cool. Um, and I remember, I don't know what I learned from him about Ramadan. I think I got a Quran. I borrowed his Quran one night or one couple nights or something, and I remember taking it to the library, and because I didn't know anything about it, and I was like, let me go to the library and find one of these, and then I got one from the library, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Now this is all like pre 9/11 even, so like there was no, to my knowledge, no negative representation of this religion, and there was almost no representation of it. Like I knew people who were Muslim, but like, they were never really trying to convert people or whatever, but I knew them because I was in Mesa in college. It's like Math, Engineering, and Science Association. I think that's what it stands for. One of my friends in my calculus class was some kind of a major where she was more interactive with that group, and she kept telling me, come do it, come to this group, it's really 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 fun. And I went, and I was like, oh, I loved it. Like it was really fun. It was like a lot of mostly a lot of people from India, some Middle Eastern countries, of people just kind of like people who are usually into like engineering and sciences and stuff like that. A lot of them were guys, some of them were females. A lot of them kind of had like strict families, and so like it was interesting going out as like a crew of people of all these different races and nationalities, and like we kind of went we go do stuff like mini golf or bowling or whatever, and like I remember some of the females would have to get home early, or like they couldn't ride in cars with the guys, or like, you know, I kind of just picked up on some of the cultural stuff. I remember going to McDonald's and like certain people couldn't eat certain things, or certain people didn't order the meat, or you know. um and I remember in high school being in this class with this guy that I think was Muslim, and back then I was practicing Adventist Christianity, and I remember we had some kind of cultural potluck in our U.S. history class. This was probably my junior year, and I remember them saying, you know, if there's any kind of, are there any people who have like restrictions of what they don't eat? And I kind of raised my hand. I was like, yeah, I don't remember if they asked, but I was kind of like pork, shellfish. Like, I don't remember what I said, or if we had to say it, or what. And um, so I remember we both raised our hands, and I remember being in line, either in front or behind him, and you know, like, cause we were talking about this in the class, you know, like the teacher had, you know, raise your hand if there, I don't know who mentioned like, oh, what if we have dietary restrictions, is there a way that people could maybe like label the food? Like I think someone brought that up, I don't know if it was the teacher or a student, and she's like, okay, well like raise your hand if you have some kind of like dietary restriction. I don't know if she specific, if anybody specifically mentioned something, but I remember he raised his hand, and then I kind of hesitantly raised my hand, and I feel like we were like the only people in the class that I remember raising our hands. And we didn't really talk much, but I remember being in line like near him, and there was like a Japanese dish I was kind of like reaching into. It was like some kind of fried rice dish with like egg, and like it was kind of fresh looking and everything, with little veggies cut up in it and stuff. And I remember him being like, I think that has shrimp in it. And so I was like, oh, thanks, you know, like, and that's like the only time me and him ever talked. But it was kind of like cool. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, like you know, like stuff like that, where it's just like, you know, I've always liked having like different experiences with religious types of people, because I was raised pretty religious and grew up pretty religious, and you know, opted into practicing kind of like a strict religious practice for a while, and I was really into it. And so I don't completely knock it, and I'm not completely like against it. I kind of like the practice of things. Just for me, it gets a little difficult when I'm dealing with the people. It's like the people, or the environment, or the social structures of things, and you know, the social structures, the social culture of things, like a lot. I've been turned off to a lot of that, and it's just, I've found it to not be healthy. Not, I'm not saying everybody's life is like that, or everybody's environments are like that, but the ones that I know, I'm just kind of not into them. And well, the ones that are most convenient to me, like if I wanted to go to a service that's like 10 minutes away, I'm not into that service. There are multiple services where I'm like, I just don't want to put up with that kind of, those kind of people, or that kind of space. um, you know, but I don't dislike some of the practices and stuff. Like there's still stuff that I do enjoy doing, and then there's stuff that I like, this other people's religions, that I'm kind of like, oh, like this is interesting, it's kind of cool, I like it, I enjoy it. I get a lot of joy out of it, even as just like a project, even if it's not as like a worshiping kind of act or something. If it's just like, I'm just doing this because it's like, what else am I gonna do? Sit around and watch Netflix all day? It's like, I'd rather do this kind of stuff and talk about it and write about it and have experiences, firsthand experiences. I'd rather have firsthand experiences than just, you know, sit around and like waste time, you know, like with nothing to show for it. I like to just experience things and think about experiences, even if I'm just at home thinking about what I'm gonna cook, and when I'm gonna cook, and what I'm gonna eat, and like what that looks like at what time, or if I'm gonna like put on a prayer, or like, even if it's like going through the motions, like even if it's not like even like, oh, I'm worshiping Allah or something, it's like if I'm just going through the motions of like the standing and the kneeling and the bowing and all these things, it's like it's just interesting to do. It's like just to think about and try to do something that I don't do. Like I'm not Muslim. I don't do those things, but I can't say that I've never tried it because now I've tried it. I tried it a little last year. I'm trying some different stuff this year. I don't see any reason not to do it. Like what's it hurting, I mean, and if it is hurting something, I'll find out along the way. But I'm not, trying to tell people they need to do it. But I mean, why not? If you're into that kind of stuff and it's what interests you, I mean, this is kind of like a hobby to me. Like, and I know it sounds weird maybe, but it's like it's something that I like doing, but I also don't really like. I don't always like talking about stuff on the internet because it's kind of weird and it is kind of like I don't want to be like controversial, but it's like it is kind of controversial, you know, and I'm not trying to like create controversy. I'm trying to talk to the people who have cultural interests. Like, if you like different cultures, why not immerse yourself even a little bit in some of it, and just see what it's like. Talk to people that do that, learn from people who do that. I don't see anything wrong with it. Maybe there's something wrong with it, but I don't see anything wrong with it. It's like, I like having fun experiences. And for me, this is one way to have some fun, exciting experiences outside of what I would maybe normally do. Um, and kind of like push myself past my comfort levels of different things. Because when I'm like, oh, I want to try this, then I start realizing what I'm uncomfortable with. Like, if I don't try it, then it's like all in theory, right? It's like, oh, I could fast for 30 days because you are eating. I mean, you're eating at times that maybe you don't normally eat. Like, I don't eat at any of like, so basically, usually I'm eating breakfast around 8:30 in the morning, maybe closer to 9 a.m. I'm usually eating lunch like sometime between 12 and maybe like 1:30 or so, maybe a little later than 1:30. I'm usually eating dinner ideally around 4:30 p.m. My dinners are usually early. I'm usually cramming all my meals in, and most of my meals are pretty much always when it's daylight. I'm not really eating when it's dark. And it's just kind of like, I like to do this type of intermittent fasting, but it's like, it's weird because, like, well, if I'm trying to do it in a way where it's related to Ramadan and I'm eating and fasting during the daylight hours and eating when it's dark, that's completely opposite from what I normally do. I don't eat when it's dark, I eat when it's light. And so it's like, that's that alone. And then you are eating, but it's like, it throws off the whole thing, throws off your whole day, your whole way of doing things. And then you start looking at things differently. Like, even just today, I woke up, the first thing I thought about was I didn't even fully decide what I was going to try to do yet today. And I was like, okay, the prayer time, there was a prayer time that was at like 5 something in the morning that I missed, I think. And then there was one at 6:21 a.m. So I missed the one, I think it was at 5:11 a.m., the very first prayer time. I woke up probably around 5:30 a.m., which is what I wanted to do. But I didn't know what time it was. Laid around a little bit till like 5:45, and I was just debating with myself, am I going to do any of this at all? Because now is going to be the time to decide, right? And so I kind of, I'll be able to explain this better if my energy is different, but my head is actually kind of foggy this morning. And like I said, I woke up, I was tired, but I was like, okay, like, get up and do this or skip it and skip the first day and just don't do any of it or do some version of it And I'm like, man, I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to get up and cook, and I don't eat this early at all. This is like multiple hours before I even eat or cook. But I'm like, I'm up. The waking up isn't the hard part for me. It's doing anything. I don't usually do anything when I'm up that early. You know, I'm just chilling online or like other things. And if I back up a little bit, I mean, I do like the Friday sundown to Saturday sundown Sabbath time. I'm not. I don't really want to. I'm not like super strict with things, but I do try to adjust my activities during that time and do more, I guess, things that would be considered self care or learning of some kind. I think that's maybe musical things. That's maybe about as much as I want to really describe of what I might be doing, but I usually try to not be just like watching movies all day or, just like sitting on YouTube and watching like random vlogs and stuff. And if I do, I usually try to pay attention to a certain type of content, and away from other types of content that's just pure entertainment. I try to do different forms of learning, like cultural learning, and you know, usually I'm not working or studying for something that would be, I don't do like career and job related and income related stuff necessarily. Not like I said, I'm not like strict with it too much, but that's like about the basics of how a Friday night to Saturday night would look like for me. I stay pretty aware of the sundown times, during those times of the week, and it kind of grounds me a little bit, and it's something that I've been used to because I grew up doing that. So for me, even as hard as it may be, it's easy because it's like that's something that I kind of know. I'm like, Friday night to me feels different than any other night of the week. Saturday morning feels different than any other day of the week. I'm completely free those days. Unless I've already made plans, but I am usually not beholden to anything unless I just decide that I want to do that. Those are my time. That's kind of my routine. That's what I normally do. That's for me. That's what I normally do. I'm not telling you the details of all that I do, but I do just generally that. And I'm not saying I don't go to concerts or raves or whatever. Like, I buy tickets for stuff. I do other stuff too. But if I'm going to be home, I do have a certain thing that I at least consider as far as like lifestyle, scheduling, stuff like that. I at least consider it, even if I'm not going to be strict and do it all. So Ramadan fell on, a Sabbath evening, and that also made things very interesting because I'm like, well, I'm already kind of dabbling in that direction, so it's not too far to just like try to learn some of this stuff or do some of it or talk about it or record about it, because I would have been doing something along those categories anyways. Just it happens to fall into something that has to do with Islam, which I was not really thinking about or studying about or anything. But I don't think I've really been studying much of anything lately. Just kind of like trying to adjust my sleep and my health and my fitness and all these different things. But it's kind of interesting too because I kind of check in with somebody once a week, and kind of my challenge for this week, even before Sabbath came up, my challenge for this week was to try to consider adjusting my schedule. And it is kind of interesting if it's like, okay, we just talked about that in the morning. On Friday morning, I didn't know that Ramadan was starting on the night of the 28th. And I hope that wherever that emergency vehicle is headed to, I hope the people get the help that they need fast. I hope they're going to be okay. Um, but yeah, I wasn't. I guess I wasn't fully thinking about Ramadan. I kind of looked it up before, like maybe some weeks before. Here comes another one. I looked it up maybe weeks before, and I found out that, I mean, I think when I looked at it said Ramadan was going to be March 1st, or maybe I just put that in my head that it was going to be March 1st. And so I kind of had it in the back of my head, but I wouldn't have thought about it if I wasn't checking in with my Muslim friend yesterday. They had sent me a message that they weren't going to be online much for maybe like a month. And I was just like, oh yeah, it's probably because of Ramadan. Like, they didn't say that specifically, but I was kind of curious, and I was like, well, if we do, come back online during then, or because we live far, so it's like we're not talking if it's not online. If you do come online and you do want to talk about it, if you're comfortable, if you want to talk about Ramadan, if that's what you're doing, or maybe I'm just assuming that's what you're doing, or if there's other stuff that you want to talk about just within your comfort level, just let me know, because like I'm always down to talk to my friends, so I'm not really gonna be like, okay, see you in a month and just leave it at that. Like, I'm kind of like, hey, like, I'm not trying to push, but they said maybe, so I'm like, maybe means they're not really 100% saying that they're not going to be online. And I was like, if you're not online, that's cool, I'll talk to you later, but if you are online and you do want to talk about it, and it happens to be about Ramadan, I'm just throwing it out there that I'd be open to talking about that, because if there's anything they'd want to share, I'd be curious. But it kind of made me remember yesterday. I was like, oh shoot. And this was like right before sundown. I was like checking messages before sundown anyways, because Sabbath was coming up, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be online, checking all these messages on these other sites and stuff. I was just kind of like, I don't want to be online. So I decided not to be online talking to them about it. But man, what is going on? Sorry. I opened the window for some fresh air, and I didn't predict it was gonna be so loud. Um, Sorry, there's like a lot of sirens though. Um, Something must be going on somewhere, or maybe they're all going to the same place. I don't know. But it's like a little after 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. It's not like a normal time, but I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully everything is okay. But um, what was I saying? So yeah, Friday night was coming in. Um, so that's when I was kind of like, oh, it must be Ramadan. So I looked it up, and then I was like, oh yeah, it starts tonight. But with their time zone, I don't think they would have gotten my messages before it started for them. They would have already been in Ramadan by that time. And so I don't really know if they're going to check it, or if I'm going to get in touch with them anytime in 30 days. I'm not going to message them back. I'll wait and see if they message me at all. But that was kind of what was going on right before Ramadan even started in my area or whatever. If that's how it works, because I don't know if it's sundown or if it's like moonlight or what. I don't really know the exact rules, but let's just say it's sundown. Let's just say whatever the local sunset time is listed for in my area. Let's just say that those are the times we're working with. I culturally don't really know what Muslims do. I've kind of read a couple things, but I don't really fully remember. Um, but I was like, my head was already going towards Sabbath time period. I wasn't really thinking Ramadan time period so much, even though I knew that we were coming up on it. But I think I wouldn't have remembered if I hadn't checked that message last night. And I wouldn't have seen it any other place. I might have remembered March 1st, but I wouldn't have thought to look on the night of February 28th. And so I looked, I saw it, and I was like, oh, do I want to do anything? Because this is like soon, and I think I had like 20, 30 minutes before the sundown was actually coming. So I was kind of like, whatever I was doing online, I was like, all right, let me just. I was kind of like reluctant. I was like, I was enjoying like binge watching something that was just mindless stuff. And I was like, because I've been watching Genius. I finished season on Prime. I finished season one about Einstein. The second season is about Picasso. I was into that. I was watching this other vlog. If you guys know that one guy, Vlad NCL, his vlog where he dresses up like a woman, and guys are like hitting on him and all the time and stuff, and then he dresses up like a gamer girl, and people kind of treat him bad sometimes because they want to just like treat him like crap because they think he's like a girl. And there are a lot of guys on there that seem to just go, I guess he goes on Omegle or something like that, or live streams, and then people just pop in and they, some of them are really just like, oh, you're a gamer girl, like, and they try to like start this whole like, let me tell you like it is, because you're a girl, and like it's usually guys that are like on there, and then the girls are usually like, you're so pretty. And then, but then like he has this voice, he does this like high pitched voice, and he really looks like a pretty model type of a girl. And then he'll come out with his voice like, I'm Vlad, a big Russian man, and he has like these muscles. He's like pretty bulked up and everything, so he'll be like flexing and stuff. Like he'll be wearing like a tank top or something, and then you could like see his like shoulders and his biceps when he like pulls back from the screen and like zooms out some, and then you could kind of see he's like this buff dude that looks facially totally looks like a lady, but looks like a young lady, but you know there's also this just like creepers on there that are just like disgusting guys saying all kinds of disgusting stuff. It's pretty nasty. um but I got sucked into watching some of that stuff. um and it's interesting. It's like a social experiment, but it's also like you kind of see like women do get treated that way online and in person, walking down the street and stuff. Not all women all the time, and I'm not saying that all guys are that way all the time, but I mean, there are enough of them out there that treat people that way. And social experiments like that just show it. Um, but I was binge watching some of that, and then I was like, okay, let me spend some time with some other type of stuff because I'm like, this stuff is gonna be there. It's gonna be there. I can tune into it later on. But for now, let me switch gears and like focus on some cultural stuff or like some ancient teachings and things. I'm kind of into that, so I was like, let me just switch gears. But I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to do this. Um, and so I was like, well, let me just go take this Quran. I looked up a couple things where I was like, what are the prayer times? What are the times for? What are the dates for Quran, for Ramadan? What is the time period of um when it starts and ends, and what are the dates and just like generally where do you find it in the Quran? And I was like, well, let me just pack my little backpack and go park down the street. Because at this time it wasn't even dark yet. It was Friday night, but it was like, I think it was like 5:30 something. Like it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was sundown already. Because I think sundown was 5:49 p.m. last night. And I think it was sundown already, or maybe it was like 5:45 when I was leaving out of the house. And then I set up in the car, down the street in a lot that I like to be in, and I just was in the car chilling, doing podcast recordings. And I was like, well, at least it's easier just to get out of the house and record. And then I did some recordings that had nothing to do with these topics, and then I did some recordings that did have to do with these topics. And I kind of just jumped into it, and so I enjoyed that, and to me it was fun. And then I came back home once it started getting cold in the car, and I was like, well, I can snack. I felt a little bit like I wanted a snack, and I was like, I can snack because it's dark, so I can technically snack. If I'm gonna, do something related to Ramadan, I could technically eat still at night, even though I don't usually eat that late. But it was probably like 8:45 p.m. when I came back home, and I was like eating, and I'm like, I don't usually eat this late, but that might be why I'm so like tired and groggy, and like I was a little having like a bit of an irritable stomach a little bit this morning. I think because I ate late last night. But then I went to sleep and slept pretty early, pretty good. I probably slept from like 11, maybe 10:45, 11 p.m. till like later. And I don't know if I really watched too much online. I don't remember. Let me see. Maybe I did. Let me look at my YouTube and see if I watched anything last night before I was going to sleep, because I don't remember doing that. No, I did. I was watching some service. I remember now. I was watching some Muslim service. There's a service that I like. I don't like it as like a religious thing. Well, I do, but I don't. Not as a religious thing for me. So I was catching up with some content by Obed Fox. I rewatched his last year's episode of my first 24-hour of Ramadan 2024. Obaid, he spells his name Obayd and last name Fox. He's this British dude in maybe like his 20s or so, who he's a Caucasian British guy whose family is, his parents converted to Islam, and he was raised Muslim. I think he knows Arabic. It sounds pretty fluent to me. He has some content in Arabic. And then I looked up the Quran that I have. It had some links. I looked up the YouTube channel for that Quran. It was called like Easy Quran or something like that. I looked up this recited passage called Yasin, because I posted it on because the one that it's something I've liked for multiple years, just this certain way that this one person recited it. I liked it, and so I posted it on one of the podcast episodes, and I think it looks like I watched another video of Obed Fox in Saudi Arabia, because I think his family moved to Saudi Arabia, but he would go to school in like England, I think. He was in college. I don't really know. And then there's this service that I like, or this website that I like, called JSMC Tampa. It stands for Jesus Son of Mary Center, but it's a Muslim center. And there's this guy, his name is Brother Adam El Saada, Elsaada. Um, Light skinned looking dude, kind of young looking. He was probably the first person who I watched his video of him speaking. So I listened to that last night because I was like, I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of like praying like that. I was like, it's late, I'm tired, but I was like, well, let me just listen to this. Now it's not the Ramadan service, but it's the last service he did before Ramadan of this year, and then they do have a Ramadan service on there, and then so basically I was trying to do that. So that's what I was doing last night. So I was on YouTube, but it's like the gears kind of switched from the other stuff to the stuff I was talking about on the podcast to post those links, and then some stuff I just kind of wanted to rewatch because I like to rewatch stuff. Like I don't really mind rewatching something. Um, yeah, and that brought me into this morning. So, and none of this is bragging. I mean, I'm not like trying to pump myself up and be like, this is what everyone needs to do, or I'm good at this. Like I'm not even doing it right, okay? So don't even, please don't think that I'm trying to say that I'm like, because I'm trying things that I think I'm better than anybody. I don't. I just I just think it adds more interest, more interesting ways to reflect on life for me. That's why I do it, because it kind of tells me a lot about myself. Like before sundown last night, I was online enjoying myself completely, and I was like, I totally would rather be online in this other chat space or doing some other kind of fun, exciting thing than like thinking about religions and thinking about all these like ancient scriptures and all these kind of praying things and rituals and things. I'm like, I don't really want to switch gears and think about that. Like, I'd rather watch people gaming online or like do whatever the heck else. Like, it wasn't something I really wanted to do that badly. But I found the compromise where I was like, okay, if I get out of the house and do some podcasting of stuff that some of it had nothing to do with any of this really, and then others of it did, I was like, at least I'm offline in a way. I'm not consuming that other content. I'm stepping away from that because I've been watching that for multiple hours during this week. Um, so I'm switching gears to do something different. But I didn't predict that my mind was going to be like, I don't want to do this. You know, I had to force myself to do it. And then I was like, okay, like maybe it helped me sleep a little bit better though. Maybe that was part of it too. I don't really know. And then like I said, the snacking when I got home, that's not normal. I don't usually snack, but that was something I decided to do because I was like, well, if it's Ramadan, I can eat at night, and it's night, it's dark, so I can still technically eat even though I normally wouldn't be eating. But I was like, usually I would have resisted having a late night snack that late at night, but I was like, well, I want it, and so I did it. And so it was kind of different to be eating that late. It kind of hit the spot. I had I heated up some few slices of kielbasa sausage. And this wasn't a healthy snack. I heated up some kielbasa sausage little slices that I made, and then I had a few Ritz crackers and a little kind of like couple spoons of hummus. And I had just crackers and hummus and sausage, and I had a little bit of mustard for the sausage too, just to mix up the flavors. It was a snack. It wasn't like a whole meal's worth. It wasn't a lot. And I ate a light dinner. I ate a pretty light dinner. We usually have fish on Fridays because that's just what my mom likes to cook on Fridays. And it was tilapia, frozen tilapia in bow tie noodle Alfredo, with a little bit of veggies chopped up in there. It, you know, I try to stay away from cheesy stuff, like cheese products. So I didn't want to eat a lot of it. Plus, it was mostly just carbs and not a lot of fish. And so I had a protein shake, a vegan-based protein shake on top of that. So that's all I really had for dinner. I had maybe half of what the portion would normally be, what I would normally eat for pasta, but it was probably the normal amount of pasta that you should eat. And then, so that would have been my dinner. And I would have just called it a night. I probably would have just stayed home online, chatting online with friends and watching YouTube, and then knocking out and going to sleep. But instead, I decided to switch gears because of the sundown and because it was Friday sundown and because it was the first start of Ramadan for 2025. And so I was like, well, let me just do this because I caught things kind of on time. So I was like, well, let me just switch gears into this. So yeah, I liked that. It kind of felt nice to kind of end my night that way. And then I was thinking, maybe I'll read the Quran because people say, read through the Quran. That's kind of a tradition to read through the Quran during the month of Ramadan, the 30-day period of Ramadan. But it's like 600 pages. So I'm like, that's like 20 pages a day, which is maybe if you do 10 in the morning and 10 at night, that's really not bad. Like, it could take some time, and the version of the Quran I have is complicated to try and understand. And I think for the first time I read some of it out loud. Maybe I did that last year too on a podcast, but for the first time I read some of it out loud while I was on the podcast trying to read some of the parts that, well, in the English translation part of the parts that have to do with Ramadan of the link that I looked up before I left the house. And so I read it out of there in the dark car with my with my phone light on. And then I started thinking, 600 pages, 30 days. I could probably read the Quran in 30 days. I'm not saying I want to necessarily, but I could if I wanted to. That's an attainable thing. I could do it if I wanted to. I don't know if I will. I might. I might not. We'll see. And then with the trying to do the fasting this morning, I mean, full transparency, I was cooking, pretty much cooking and preparing food during the time of, before the 6:21 a.m. sunrise time. So the 5:11 prayer I said I missed. The next prayer would have been 6:21 a.m., which I missed it because I was cooking. So I think I was pretty much done cooking by the time it was technically sunrise. So I ate breakfast past sunrise. So I ate breakfast like into the morning. I could have technically made it on time if I would have decided earlier. If I would have decided earlier, like made up my mind earlier or cooked less, I would have been able to make it on time. But I was like still debating in the morning if I really wanted to do it because I woke up feeling kind of groggy, and I was like, oh, I don't really feel hungry at all even at this time of morning. And now it's going to become a problem because now every morning I'm going to start getting hungry at like 6 something in the morning. So now I'm going to have to keep eating at 6 in the morning because waiting till like 8:30 or 8:45 to eat breakfast is going to be too long of a stretch now because my stomach's going to start getting used to it. But I ate early. I didn't really hydrate properly. I didn't really eat carbs necessarily, so I don't think realistically I could really make it all the way till 5:50 p.m. I was considering midday, either snacking for lunch or just having like, more like protein shake stuff, like fluids, but fluids with calories or no solids, like yogurt or something. I don't really know. Something that's different than what I would normally do, but still eating. I don't really know. Cause I don't know how I feel about waiting all the way to eat at night. I'm a grumpy person. I get like when my blood sugar is off, I am not gonna be pleasant to be around, but also it's Saturday, so I'm usually spending Saturdays by myself. I usually do my own thing by myself, which is what I prefer. I don't prefer to be doing stuff with people on Saturdays. I prefer to not. Other than podcasting, or if I'm out doing something, if I'm home, I like to be studying and by myself and not with any other person. I was thinking I might take the Quran down the street and go park somewhere in the shade and read the Quran in the car. I might go do that, or go to the beach and sit in the car and do that. Maybe, I don't really know. Um, or go do that when the sun is setting. I think Sunday of last week, I caught the sunset at the beach. Usually that's something I like to do on Sundays because it starts out the week. So I don't know if I want to throw it off. Or I could do it Saturday and Sunday. I don't know. But I could do it during the afternoon, then go out again like sundown. I kind of like catching the sunset over the ocean because I don't live that far from the ocean, from the Pacific. So the sunset's over the ocean west, so I can see it if I'm parked right there. There's like these viewpoints where you can just like sit and park and just like sit in the car. Like I said, I'm not saying, I hesitate to talk about this stuff online because I don't want it to sound like I'm bragging. But like I'm saying, like, clearly I'm not doing it right. So like, I just like to try and see what the experience is like. And that's what I'm doing, is trying it. It's like, I'm kind of like, I still haven't decided what I want to do. Like the learning part is what would come easier for me, is just like, okay, just bury my face in a book, look up some references online, listen to some services, listen to some lectures or sermons, listen to some tutorials or some kind of like informational type of stuff. Like that's kind of my strong point. That's kind of for me what's like easier to do, even if it is like learning some Arabic, learning how to pronounce some terms, or learning some vocabulary and how to write and read a little bit more of Arabic, which is something I'm interested in. Those types of things to me, I'm like, ooh, this is appealing. I want to do that. I want to try some of that. And I have 30 days to do it. Like, I could probably get pretty far in 30 days. And I'd be more motivated because there's like a season and like a culture around it that would like keep me motivated. Even though, like I said, I'm not like fully involved with anybody, with any culture. But I could be involved with a culture. I could do it. I could venture out and like get a little more immersed. I could do that. Um, Probably won't, but I could. It's an option to do. And I kind of might want to do it. I'll think about it more. I'll think about what I want to read more, what I want to learn more, or what I want to do. And with the prayer times and stuff, that's complicated too. And all the eating stuff and not eating stuff, that's going to be complicated too. Like, so I don't really know. Um, I don't really know. I mean, last year I did it maybe for a couple days. I don't think I did it for more than maybe I would say if I did it for a week, that would have been a really long time. I think it was probably like 2 or 3 days where I set a timer for the times that it said that there would be prayer times, and I might have adjusted it to kind of fit more of my own preferences. I don't know if I picked the exact times that they had said online, but I do remember setting a timer, and I remember not doing good with it. I remember being late even though the timer was going off. I was late. I think I didn't do the whole like ablution washing thing. I think I just did a basic like hand and face wash kind of thing. And then if I was home or whatever, and then tried to do it. But I remember how hard it was, and that kind of turned me off to it because I'm like, this is really difficult. It's really difficult. I was like, this is really hard. It's really hard to do because I'm in the middle of my day doing other stuff. Even though I wasn't that busy, I was still doing other stuff. I think I was applying for jobs and stuff. And, I remember, yeah, last year was just weird. And so I'm interested to see this year how it would go. My health is like in a little better state, not fully great, but it's in a little better of a state than it was last year. So I'm like, well, maybe I can do a little bit more because I'm not having the same issues. Exactly. So I want to try and do a little bit more, but I really haven't fully decided what I want that to look like. The beginning of the fast, which would have been 6:21 a.m. today, I already missed that. I already missed the morning, both of the morning prayers. But it's kind of one of those things. It seems like if you miss something, you just kind of move on and like you're aware of it and you just move on and do the next part of the day. Like you can't really catch up. And I only read like, other than the Ramadan stuff, I read like maybe three up to page I'm on page 3 in the Quran, and the very beginning of it was kind of just saying like that it's not supposed to be difficult. It's not meant to be difficult. Like, you know, the practices are attainable, and it's not. You know, the religion isn't meant to be difficult. And I'm thinking like, it's difficult. This is difficult. How is this not difficult? like, like it's not, but it's not impossible. I'm wondering if there's no community, it seems like it's harder to do it. And if you're like an outsider like me, and you're not like fully, I'm not like fully, I don't want to be fully convicted. I'm not doing that for that purpose. That's not a goal, to like be convicted to try to do Muslim practices or try to attain like the 5 pillars and do that kind of stuff. Like if it so happens that I'm able to kind of like do it and I like it and start doing it, cool. But um I'm not, that's not really what my intention is necessarily. I just kind of want to see what it's like. And I do think it is kind of difficult doing it just for the experience of doing it, like with no other, like to me it's like interesting, like it kind of gives me like this intellectual buzz of like, oh, this is exciting because it's something new and there's a lot to learn, and I'm not like too afraid to like dive into some cultural thing that head first that like I really could not. I have, like, nobody needs to know that I try it, or I don't need to talk about it with anybody. Um, but that's what I do on the pods, is I talk about my experiences with things in life. And if this is going to be something for a month, then I'm trying to even like consider what to do or how to do it. There is a traditional way to do it exactly to the T. I don't know if I even want to do that, and I don't know if I care to do it. I just don't know. Like I still haven't fully made up my mind even. Um, but I like trying some of it, and the idea of trying some of it. I don't want to completely avoid it and completely ignore it. Um, but it is kind of showing me where I would prefer to spend my energy. And it is not on this stuff. My energy, I do not prefer to spend my energy on praying and fasting. That is not naturally what I want to do right now. Um, Now, it might be something that could help me. It might round out some of the areas in my life that maybe aren't very balanced right now. It could probably potentially help with that. Even if people don't pray, if you're meditating or just, reflecting or journaling or something, I don't know, something that's introspective, I think it's important. I think it's important for me to get, you know, offline in the ways that I'm normally online and get off of there and start to try to do other stuff. I would say that I find value and importance in that. And that if I'm just giving in only to what I want to do, that's gonna give me all those dopamine hits and joy from that. To be honest, that hasn't been working in my life. Obviously, it hasn't been working, or else my sleep wouldn't have been so messed up for quite a few weeks, and my I've had some other stuff going on, and maybe some of it's not related. Maybe it's hormonal stuff. Maybe it's other types of stuff. But I mean, a lot of times, I mean, it's kind of interesting how much is connected to your blood sugar, your blood health, your you know, just in general for like your mental health and physical health and stuff like that. Um, your heart rate and how your heart has to do with blood and pumping blood and stuff like that, and like the stuff that goes into your bloodstream and all that, things like caffeine and stimulants or even cannabis or whatever. It's like just thinking in general about that kind of stuff is like, it's interesting to kind of consider, you know, anything that might need to be adjusted. But it's like, I also feel like if I don't do anything, like it doesn't have to be even Ramadan or Sabbath or any kind of thing, but if I don't do anything and just keep things as they are and just go about my routines that aren't 100% working, like they're working enough that I can function, but I'm not functioning at an optimal level that I would maybe prefer, you know, they're not working perfectly. I think it would be wise to try to adjust some things at least and see what could change, what's possible to change, or what might change. It might change for the worse, it might change towards something better. I might not know, but it's an option to try to change things. And I could use this time period to try to do that, and at least to think more on it. I don't have to do it maybe exactly in the Muslim tradition, because clearly there's not going to be a way for me to really do that without learning how to do it, and I don't know how much energy or effort I'd want to put into learning all of it. I learned a lot last year. Some of it stuck, some of it I completely forgot. I've already learned a little bit this year, and I kind of have some options of things that I'd be more willing to try that I didn't even think of trying to do last year. Last year I barely was hardly focused on anything other than like some of the fasting for some of the times for some of the days, and some of the praying for some of the times for some of the days. Very, very limited, just to kind of like dip a toe into some of the experiences. And it was fun. I liked what I got out of it as far as like how it went and what I have as far as memories and experiences from it. I wouldn't say I got nothing from it. But when I start thinking about how this past week went, and I'm like, okay, I have had improvements just from going to the gym, and I was just reading earlier about this. I went to UCI, and so I get this alumni magazine, and I keep it in the bathroom, but I don't really read it. And there was this one article that was by, I think the names are Susan Samueli and Jacqueline Leong. They're two doctors or researchers in the medical field out of UCI that have research on salt and sodium and sleep and REM cycles. And they were saying that like a lot of Americans consume too much. If you have too little, it could lead to nightmares, insomnia. No, maybe it was the other way around. But basically, too little or too much is going to affect your sleep and your REM cycles negatively on either side. And I started thinking about that because they're saying like recommended is like maybe 1,500 calories or 1,500 milligrams or so per day, and most people are consuming a lot more than that. And I was like, I track iron, I try to track sugar, protein, a little bit of carbs, a little bit of calories, but I don't know how much sodium I'm intaking every day. I don't really pay attention to that too much. And so I was kind of thinking about that this morning too. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's like something else to kind of try to look into in addition. Because maybe my sleep, is. I don't know. For me, when your sleep is bad, that means something. To me, that means something. When your sleep is not good, that is telling you something in your life is not going well. Either you drank too much caffeine, and that's maybe all that it is for the day. You drank too much caffeine too late. Maybe you're stressed about something. Maybe there's something that you haven't fully processed or or trying to process, or maybe you're up late at night watching shows online because you'd rather not deal with that discomfort of like the stress that it takes to disconnect and have your mind focused even for like a few minutes before you fall asleep on something. Or maybe you're having nightmares or bad dreams or weird dreams, or maybe it's some kind of like cortisol thing or some way that your food is kind of digesting. There's so many different things that can affect your sleep, and it's like usually that when your sleep is not good, something is wrong in your life. you know and I've noticed I've been having problems with it for a while, and I'm like, something's wrong. Like, I know something's wrong. Like, now it's not wrong in a way where it's like, oh, like, I'm like, things are so bad in life. It's not like that, but it's like I can kind of tell something's not right, you know, fully right, and things are getting better. Like, they're getting better. The more I try different stuff, they're getting better. So that's why I'm like, well, I don't want to be too hesitant to try something different, because every time I'm like, I don't want to do this, but it might help, and then I try it and it helps right away. Like, I didn't want to start going to the gym, but because I was fine working out at home. I was like, I'm just running around in my garage and doing a bunch of cardio, and I've got weights. Literally, I'm looking at them right now in my room. I've got weights already set up, ready to use. I don't necessarily need the gym, but the workouts there apparently were better. They were good enough that I slept way better the nights that I worked out, you know, when I had worked out that morning, I slept way better, and my mood was quite a bit better. Um, but my sleep instantly was better, and there's no amount of melatonin that has been able to like help the sleep issues that I was having up until that point. Like, there were nights when I probably took 30 to 40 milligrams of melatonin and still was having trouble sleeping. It's like, and you're not even supposed to take that much. Like, 10 is even a lot. But I was taking that much and still awake. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, and also the formula in the brand that I have right now, I got it at Super Bowl. I got it on Super Bowl. I usually have Ollie brand, but I had Natural. It's called Natural, Natrol. That's the one that I purchased instead. But it's not as good as the other one, because the other one has L-theanine, and this Natural brand, it has like a slower release. So I don't like that slower release time thing. I think it doesn't really work with me naturally. But then also, I took 5 milligrams last night and I slept fine. I didn't really even feel like I needed it. I actually was getting tired early, but I was like, well, let me take this because I don't want to like wake up in the middle of the night. But I think my doctors recommend 3 milligrams. I think I could probably go back to 3 milligrams just off of 2 days of exercising. If I keep exercising every day, I should be fine. And that's just a simple thing. It's like, I've had like weeks of crazy sleep pretty much since the fires in LA. I've had weeks since that time. My sleep has been like thrown for multiple days a week. It's definitely improved week by week, but it's definitely bad. it's definitely not at a place where I'm like, oh, my sleep is good. Like it's only been good like 1 or 2 nights, and then like I said, this morning I woke up feeling kind of groggy, probably because I ate some late night snack. But I also feel kind of like okay, like I've got plans of stuff I want to do today, because it's different. And it's not maybe the most exciting of plans. Like, who's like, ooh, I might get to read and see what the Quran says. Like, that's not like that interesting. But I mean, it feels more interesting than going back online watching the stuff I was gonna be watching. You just binge watching stuff that I don't really care about. And I like reading. I've been enjoying reading a little bit more this year. Um, and I might want to look into those UCI medical, uh, that UCI medical information about sleep and salt. Um, but yeah, I mean, I I think it's interesting. To me, this kind of stuff is interesting, but you know, I can't say that I'm gonna do it for 30 whole days, do it right the traditional way for 30 whole days. I don't know if I want to even like put the discipline on myself to try to do it, because it might make me feel a little bit like less interested. Last night I had this dream about soccer. I was playing soccer. I think I was taking a bus with a friend, playing soccer. I was gonna go play soccer. I was a little late for the practice and warm up, but right when I guess I'd met some people before, and then right before I arrived, I guess they gave me some cleats and like a jersey, and they're like, all right, let's start. The game's about to start, and I was like, I got there late, so I didn't get to warm up or practice with the team at all. And it was like brand new people, but everyone was pretty welcoming, and the coach seemed pretty cool. And we just like started, we just kind of started to we just kind of started to play, and we just kind of started. So yeah, we just kind of started to play in the dream, and then it was kind of fun. I was like, that's kind of nice. But I don't know, like I'm kind of looking forward to see how the month of March is gonna be. Like it's already here, March 2025. Um, I don't know. I don't know if people even care, if they don't already participate in Ramadan, if they don't already practice it. I'm not saying everybody should need to or should want to, but if you do like that kind of stuff, or even not that kind of stuff, if it's something else, just because it's a new month, it might be interesting to try something. Try and you know dabble in some new areas if there's certain stuff in your life that's not working out for you. Because I don't know, I've found it to be beneficial. Not in detail like Ramadan or whatever, but I've found it to be beneficial to kind of like embark on some bits of challenges. There's some things I realize that like no one's gonna do it but me. No one's gonna like force me to do different things for my health, or force me to do different things for my mental state. It's gonna be me that has to make those decisions to do that, and to like uphold some kind of structure with it, and continue doing what works and avoid doing what doesn't work, or at least balance it out better. And I think from what I've noted, I'm definitely getting more out of trying the changes, trying different things, than being too scared to not try them at all. Um, a lot of times people have like fear around like trying something different. Um, like I said, it doesn't have to be Ramadan or anything like that, but a lot of times it's hard to just like shift into something else. But it's like if there's stuff where it's like the benefit's going to be almost immediate, like I said with like the gym and sleep. I already knew that. The gym, going to the gym improves my sleep. I already knew that. That when I do the gym workouts I do, usually my sleep is better pretty much within the same night. It's going to be better. And I know that. I know that that's the case because I've done it before. I just was avoiding it. Even though I was exercising, I was like, I don't want to like do the extra drive there and the extra drive back. Even though it's like 10 to 15 minutes away, it's not even that far. But I didn't really want to do it. And I've probably talked about it on podcast saying that like I don't really want to do it. But that's kind of how things have been going so far. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to talk about all of this stuff. I don't know in detail how much I'm going to really discuss it. Some things I'm super comfortable discussing. Some things I'm going to be probably vague about if I do discuss it more. Other things, because I like to keep things kind of to myself too. It's certain stuff I'm like, other people, if they want to talk about it online, they can go ahead and do it. I like to listen to it. I don't want to not share about it, but again, I'm not trying to share about it in some kind of bragging way. When I do talk about it, I don't really want to talk about my accomplishments. I want to talk about the struggles because it just shows maybe more like, I don't want to be like prideful or like pumping myself up about like, oh, I did this thing, like, but I would hope it's motivating for people if they're ever experiencing like certain things where you're like, like things are just kind of boring or dull, not really looking forward to like whatever you have going on for the next days or so. Like if it doesn't seem fulfilling or interesting in any way, you know, these types of things, even if it's not Ramadan, even if it's something else, if you're just like, I'm going to do this for 30 days or do this for like a week, having a project that's kind of some creative thing, to kind of test yourself on different stuff and then reflecting on it and just kind of building yourself in other ways, I feel like it's more interesting, honestly, than just sitting around vegging out. And sometimes there's going to be that vegging out, but it's like sometimes there's not. Sometimes you're going to want to spend your energy doing other stuff. So, and it's hard to kind of just start doing it. But I usually like it when it's like, okay, it's Valentine's Day or Black History Month or, the first day of, spring or, it's Ramadan or it's Passover or it's the Sabbath or like it's Christmas or whatever the heck it is, like I like it when it's a different time of year and just trying to like focus on something that has to do with it. It kind of keeps me in touch with nature. I like things that have to do with like sunset times, sunrise times, different times of the day. It kind of keeps you more in touch with nature. Kind of keeps you in touch with the seasons. It kind of keeps you in touch with like, I mean, I live in LA, so we have like 2 seasons. We have sprinkling and we have summer. Like, well, three if you count the fog. That's all we have. We don't have seasons. We have sunny or not, basically. Like we don't really have any real distinction, And so, which is great. If you like the weather to be the same all the time, you're gonna love that. But that's pretty much all I really want to post about for today. I think, well, for now. It's a lengthy one, but we'll see kind of where things go from here.